'cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Hey, everybody, it is Wednesday, June 25th. I'm Emerson Collins.
And I'm Del Shores.
And you're listening to
The Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real guy.
We got that down.
We did so much better. We rehearsed this week, you guys. We practiced it a bunch of times.
It's all about rehearsal.
So that it would be really great. All right, well, this is our second show, and last week we had a fantastic premiere with Miss Olivia Newton-John.
Yes, thank you, Olivia, for being our very first guest. It was an amazing show. And thank you all for tuning in and writing really nice things. I didn't get one horrible comment, did you?
I don't read those. I just delete them.
Bullshit. You do too read them, and then you answer them.
And then I write really terrible things back to them. It's true.
Snarky.
If you missed our broadcast last week and are joining us this week for the first time, you can listen to last week's show on the UBNradio.com webpage at our show page, and now you can download it for free from iTunes of the Del and Emerson Show, so you can listen to it on the go, in the car, or while you're working out.
And it increases our ratings.
Yeah,
so,
we don't actually need you to listen to it. We just need you to go to iTunes and download it, so the numbers look
really good. Or you just
really good.
skip to the Olivia interview, right?
It's fine.
Whatever.
I don't care what part you listen to. Today we have a great show ahead, and we are going to get right to it. Our very special guest, Emmy Award-winning actor of stage, television, and screen, Leslie Jordan, will be joining us a little later on.
Brother Boy is in the house, Beverly Leslie.
And so many other things.
Yes, he will swish in shortly.
But a couple of quick news things before we get started. It was a big day in gay rights and gay equality.
It's a great day. We got to celebrate these victories.
Utah and Indiana are now up on the board. Indiana, you can actually get married right now. The county clerks.
Yeah, they didn't. There's a lot of these stays going on, which is really interesting to me because a lot of times we take these as a negative, and I don't think they are negatives because what it does is it takes it to the higher level, and then we just keep getting. We haven't lost any, have we, Emerson?
Not a single one.
Yeah, so if it gets to that Supreme Court, which it could, we're done.
Yes,
you know,
well, and
except for all the attitudes.
Yeah, right, that's fine. Hey, once we get the laws right, then we don't have to care anymore what people think.
Yeah, but yeah, India big, and they said I was told that Oklahoma's coming in today.
There are cases going on in Oklahoma, and the reason that's relevant is that the Utah decision was the 10th Circuit, which also covers Oklahoma, so the judge in Oklahoma could speed up the decision in that case by using the higher court level's opinion to go ahead and answer it. Well, no, we don't have one yet, and the Utah homosexuals have to wait a little bit longer. You know, the Mormons are so mad today, and that makes me so happy.
Gnashing of teeth going on in Utah.
They spent so much money on that Proposition 8, and they are losing everywhere.
I love it. And yeah, they lost us. Now they're losing Utah. Who would have thought? And if Oklahoma comes in and we got Arkansas, there's a lot of pissed off people.
Can you imagine how much they could have done in the world for good with all the money they spent on Prop 8? How many homeless people they could have fed? All those things they could. I mean, Mormons get to heaven by doing good deeds.
That's right.
That's a waste of a lot of money. A
lot.
whole lot of people are going to have to work harder to get to Mormon heaven now.
Oh, well.
They get their own planet.
Too bad.
They get their own planet.
Is that right? Oh, yes, I saw Book of Mormon.
If you do enough good. I learned everything I need to know about the Mormons from the guys who wrote South Park.
Me too. I mean, it's just a great education.
If you're Mormon, no offense. I'm kidding. You can take offense. I don't care.
Always. It's your choice to be offended. That should be our motto here. It is your choice to be offended.
Absolutely. You absolutely have the right to be offended.
And sometimes I do. I am offended.
And I have the right to not care.
Exactly. Or be offended at your being offended.
I'm offended that you're offended, that I'm offended that you're offended.
So, all right, we have a huge guest with us today. Really, talk to me about it, Emerson.
At the end of last week's show, as we're learning this process, we sort of short-shrifted a little bit our discussion about the reparative therapy addition to the Texas GOP platform. For those of you who may not be aware, reparative therapy is the idea that you can change someone's sexual orientation. Now, I'm sure our guest will be interested in disputing what I just said, but it is a unique addition to a Republican Party platform anywhere in the country, and it is supposedly in response to the passage of bills in California and New Jersey limiting the ability of licensed therapists to use reparative or conversion therapy on minors. And so the guest joining us today is Jeremy Schwab. He is actually the author of the reparative therapy portion of the Texas GOP platform. And it turns out that you know him.
Yeah, it was crazy because, we basically ended our show last week with me doing one of my fuck you letters, and I read to the delegates who approved it and wrote it and everything, and not knowing that I actually know personally Jeremy. Jeremy is a wonderful actor who took several of my workshops in Dallas and enjoyed very much directing him. When he was in leading the gay lifestyle, he came out and visited California. We went to gay bars together. And then I got a Facebook message from him that I was aware that he had gone through this with Exodus, but the communication sort of stopped because he had read Southern Baptist Sissies. He certainly knew my position on this, but I would love to read, with his permission, I've asked him if I could do that, our exchanges on Facebook. He said, Del, I'm sorry for being so out of touch. I was not sure how to explain my current situation, especially since it is a lot like Southern Baptist Sissies in some ways. I had major religious conversion after my ex-partner, and I'll leave his name out, moved out almost 3 years ago. I've been living a celibate life since then. I don't like the term ex-gay, but I have been in the Exodus program. I used to hate them, but they actually have been pretty kind to me. I know that's not always been the case, and it may not be for everyone. I have no room to judge anyone or to say that my path is right for everyone else. In my case, though, I probably need to live a celibate life, at least for a while. Anyway, I'm not bitter and judgmental like your character in Southern Baptist Sissies, although I've known a few guys like that. I wrote him back immediately. I said, we are on a very different page, Jeremy. It's too bad, in my opinion, that you can't learn to love the way you were created. If you question the creation, that would be you. You question the creator, God. You will never not be a homosexual, Jeremy. Sorry. You are perfect just as you were created. It breaks my heart that you hate that part of yourself. And even the creator of the ex-gay movement that you are now a part of agrees. I love you, Del. And then I sent him the link to, I guess it's pronounced Michael Bousset, is that one of the creators of Exodus, who made a statement of apology to those who had been hurt. He said that groups like Exodus will go out of business when people no longer feel they must deny who they really are to attempt to become what they really are not. Until then, for those wonderful people, ex-gay, gay, ex-ex-gay, who have blessed my life and enriched my journey, I'm truly thankful. And those I have harmed by my involvement in Exodus, I am truly sorry. When Exodus went down, I wrote Jeremy one more time. I said, after all the storm with Exodus, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. And I gave him my phone number, and he wrote me back. And he's always very sweet. He always writes, thanks, Del, and he puts hugs in parentheses. And that was the last I heard from him until I reached out to him after I found out from my assistant in Dallas, Erica, that he was the one who authored this.
Well, and so, as you can imagine, there has been a rather significant pushback against this addition to the GOP platform in Texas from the LGBT community and medical professionals. And Jeremy has made a number of attempts to explain further what he feels is being misrepresented about his position. And one of the reasons we created this radio show in the first place was to be able to have difficult dialogue about important issues and conversations. So we are going to bring Jeremy into the show and give him an opportunity to explain further what he feels is being misrepresented, and then we will have a discussion about it. And I think we have Jeremy on the line.
All right. Well, let's bring him on. And I just want to say one thing before we talk to Jeremy is, there was a big lesson for me. I always say we put a face on gay, and people get to know who we are, and we get to know their positions. And so I really had to, with my rhetoric, I really had to evaluate that, because I do care about this person. I care deeply about Jeremy Schwab, and I want to treat him as if if he were a guest in my home. So it will not, lessen my opinions, as Jeremy knows. He knows who I am, but I do welcome him, and I thank him for coming on the show. Are you there, Jeremy?
Yes. Thank you so much, Del. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us. It's exciting to have you, and brave and interesting, and this should be a great chance for us to all sort of discuss this. For our listeners, would you do us a favor and sort of tell us the quick version of your story from the beginning of your realization of same-sex attraction as an adolescent to where you are now? I mean the Cliff Notes, because we only got an hour.
Sure. Yeah.
We
well,
don't even
yeah,
have
I
an
was,
hour, Jeremy. We have Leslie Jordan will be very pissed off if we eliminate him. So yes,
Yeah.
but I do
Yeah,
we
that's
do
true.
want you to touch on the heartache and the heartbreak that you've expressed to
Sure.
us, and also what
Yep.
has gone on recently. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up sort of half Baptist and half Catholic, I guess a Baptist. And although my mother was a Baptist and she was pretty much in charge in that area, so I mostly was raised Baptist originally. And when I was in junior high, I guess it probably started in 12 or 13 is when I first started reaching puberty and initially had some feelings with the opposite sex. But then also started having feelings for the same gender. And about that same time, I was being picked on pretty much every single day because I had gynecomastia at the time. It's where a guy has like female-like breast, and it was really really embarrassing at that time because I don't think anybody else knew what that was, and I didn't know what it was or that had a name. But I was getting kicked and spit on and called the same names every day in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so I felt totally ostracized from my peers and from my class. And about that same time, I started, I was really longing for connection and for those friends, and I never really had them at that time. And I started having a lot of attractions for the other guys in my class. And that continued and intensified. And then, so about 2 years later, pretty much identified myself as gay, even though I wasn't willing to tell anybody yet. And then when I was about 14, my parents found out about it. They found some pictures in my room that I had from a catalog. And my mother especially went way overboard in how she reacted because she had really no idea what this is about other than everything she had heard from TV preachers and everything else. And so she just assumed I'd sold my soul to the devil. And so she kind of overreacted and started having these all-night Bible studies where she'd just scream at me the whole time. And even started having pictures of AIDS patients put up in my room so I'd have to look at them every day because she was convinced that would scare me straight, I guess. And so it was really miserable for a while there. It was just absolutely horrific. And eventually, though, she found out about Exodus, and she called them. And that was sort of a turning point because that's where things started to calm down. And we talked to a reparative therapist briefly, although I didn't actually pursue it at the time. And that's really where she started to understand that this was not something that I had chosen and was not because I was evil or that there was anything wrong with me as a person. And so things they basically left it alone at that point, even though it was still, at the time I just really didn't want to talk about with them at all. So I kind of just closed off the whole conversation, and I didn't bring it up again until a couple of years ago, actually.
But so the acknowledgement of counselors that this was not something that you had chosen sort of helped her deal with some of her reaction to it.
Exactly. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then in college I had so at that point I kind of reacted to her extreme position and kind of went the other direction and started I got on the internet not too long after that and started actually met people online and did some kind of crazy things for a 15 and 16-year-old to do. And that kind of continued on through college and et cetera. Although in college I had I went to a Catholic university and had a major conversion. And for a while I lived a chaste life and had a lot of close friendships there in college. So I really felt like I had a lot of support there. And then after I graduated, all my friends moved away back to the cities that they were from. And I was by myself in the big city in Dallas. And sooner or later, I just kind of got back on the internet and started pursuing initially some promiscuous behavior, and then got into a few short-term relationships and a few other longer-term relationships. And I never really felt comfortable with that. I still felt that it wasn't really working for me. That wasn't really what I was supposed to be pursuing, or what was really going to make me happy.
Right. And so is that what led you to seek out reparative therapy?
Yeah, eventually. I sought out a couple different groups off and on in the early 2000s, and I wasn't really that serious about it, though, so I kind of just dabbled in it, went for a few months, and then dropped off and went for a few months. And those aren't really reparative therapy groups, but they were Exodus-type groups, so they're more like a support group. And then
were they just like within your church or something that they had?
Yeah, they were. One of them was within my church, and the other one was a different church. So.
And what church were you going to at that? I mean, you don't have to name it, but what religion? Because it was Catholic.
I became Catholic, so I went to Courage for a while, and but I didn't really stay with that at the time. And then I went to a program with the Church of Christ for a while, and they were all encouraging and supportive. I just didn't really take it that seriously myself, so I kind of dropped away and just came occasionally. And then in December of 2009, I'd been in a live-in relationship for about a year and a half, and so I'd kind of given up completely on that whole idea. And I was actually at Disney World during their Gay Pride Week, and I was with my partner and with all of his friends, and they're actually had been drinking for a while, so they were getting kind of crude and lewd and everything. I just really felt like I really just didn't fit there, and I started just praying for some kind of solution, some kind of answer. And that's probably the first time I prayed in a couple of years, and I started just to feel a lot of peace about it, that something was going to change, that there was going to be a different direction for my life. And when I got back to Dallas, my partner actually left me for somebody else, which at the time felt devastating. But over time, I think it's actually gave me a lot of freedom. I started pursuing therapy with the son of the creator of, or one of the modern creators of reparative therapy, Dr. Nicolosi Jr., through Skype initially. And I saw a lot of, initially I was really skeptical of it. I didn't know whether it would work for me. I knew that it helped other people and that there were a lot of people that spoke very highly of it. But I did know that it was going to address a lot of emotional wounds that I had. And so I felt like there'd be a lot of benefit to it regardless. And I was pleasantly surprised. I think it helped me more than I would have ever imagined. I started seeing a lot of positive changes in my life. The whole focus initially was just on eliminating shame, not necessarily just shame about sexuality, but my feelings of inferiority towards other men, my feelings of inferiority in my work and everything else.
But Jeremy, at that point, I'm sorry to interrupt for a second, but I'm just trying to track the timeline. That was 2009, you said. That's kind of when we met, right? I mean, that's when that's when you and I started working together in workshops. And were you back
probably about 9 months.
Were you back and forth with this therapy? Yeah. And because you came out here, and you certainly seemed gay to me when you were in West Hollywood, in the gay bars and looking at boys.
Yeah.
So okay, sure. But you just weren't disclosing that to me at that point because you didn't tell me about that until a little bit later. Okay, in 2013 is when you first told me about it, in February of 2013.
All right. Well, thank you so much for some of that background.
I think kind of a back and forth.
That helps our listeners sort of understand your journey to being a part of feeling like pitching this plank for the Texas GOP platform was obviously important to you based on this history. And I would just want to read to our listeners again, and correct me if the text isn't completely right, but the plank says, "We recognize the legitimacy and efficacy of counseling, which offers reparative therapy and treatment for those patients seeking healing and wholeness from their homosexual lifestyle. No laws or executive orders shall be imposed to limit or restrict access to this type of therapy." Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what the final version said. That's not the way I wrote it originally, but it was amended by several different committees at different levels. But
so let's talk about what led you to feeling like this was an issue that needed to be included as a part.
And how did you get it? How did you get that opportunity to be an author of the Texas? I mean, I don't know how to do that. I mean, I'm sure the GOP wouldn't welcome.
Well, it's actually. I didn't. I actually wrote it and sent it to some friends to take it to the Democratic Party as well through the same process. It just didn't go all the way through.
Shocking.
I would like to say,
Yeah,
what were you
yeah,
thinking?
I know.
Seriously? Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, I figured I would at least be bipartisan about it. But yeah, what happened was, and just finishing up the last part of that story, in February 2010 is when I got really serious about pursuing my faith again, and I came back into the Catholic Church and began going to daily Mass and started going to Courage again. So I saw a lot of healing there as well, spiritually and emotionally.
Hey, Jeremy, I hate to interrupt you, but we're going to run out of time without actually talking about the political substance. So let's sort of just let's jump to.
Okay.
Clearly, there was an element of this that is a response to the laws enacted in California and New Jersey, correct? Your concern is that those laws are going to limit the ability of individuals to achieve therapy that you have found helpful based on removing the right of licensed therapists to engage in this therapy. Yes? Have I summarized that well? I did. I read all of your blog. I've read all of your interviews so that I could really understand what you're trying to articulate. And there's an element of it. You know, the laws are directed specifically at limiting this access for teens. There's nothing about this that limits you as an adult from having access to you and a licensed therapist addressing, you know, your life, your wounds, your healing, your same-sex attraction freely is absolutely available. This is purely limiting the ability of this to be available to teenagers. Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
So
yeah, and there's a lot of. I mean, I've actually heard from a lot of teenagers that are seeking this out on their own, and.
Well, you reference sort of regularly this idea of self-motivated teens, and this is kind of where I take issue with it because, you know, as children, as young people, we don't in a vacuum think there's something wrong with me. So I just question this attempt to phrase it as these teens are self-motivated because they're not. They are taught this either by their church or their parents or a conservative community.
You're an example with your mother. I mean, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. That was horrible what she did. But I go back to the place. What if you were hugged and you say you have all this shame, but what if you were hugged and say you're okay, Jeremy, just as you are? You were created that way. As you said, you were created that way. You said that.
Yeah, and that's where that's what reparative therapy starts with is. You know, the main focus is removing shame, so that's where, you know... But
you wouldn't need it. I'm just saying, if your parents had told you were okay, if they let you off the hook, if you will, you would not need reparative therapy because there would be nothing to repair. You would not be broken. There would be, you see, the shame would not exist. The shame would not exist.
Mm-hmm. Well, the shame is what I believe is that the same-sex attraction is driven by shame. And so I believe that the reparative therapy addresses...
Wait a second. You said that you believe that same-sex attraction is driven by shame.
That's what it was in my case, yeah.
Where did that shame come from?
Well, I had a lot of shame in terms of how I related to my peers as a kid. I had a lot of feelings of inferiority around other men. And so I had a longing to...
But you said you were created gay. You said you were created gay. I mean, you've said actually. Well, yes, you did, Jeremy. You did. You said it. I have it on the Pink Star News. You said I did not choose my sexual orientation. Now you did say over on your own Joel 225. You said you actually said that I was not created this way, so there's a contradiction there. So I'm not sure which...
I say I did not choose the attractions. I didn't mean that I was created to be gay. So I believe the attractions came about through a variety of emotional wounds, and so it wasn't that I chose those things. The attractions are... And the term reparative therapy just means that those attractions are an attempt subconsciously to repair things. It doesn't mean that therapy is about repairing a broken person at all. That's kind of.
Then they need to reword it.
Well, here's the thing, and like
Yeah, I agree. I didn't choose that name. But.
Well, but this is my big issue with you in this platform, because it seems like, I get it that you're a nice guy, and like I get that this is about, like, you reference continuously healing wounds and healing shame, but the idea that you can redefine reparative therapy as though it isn't the attempt to change or correct sexual orientation isn't factually or historically supported. I mean, Dr. Nicolosi himself talks continuously throughout his work and in his website that it is sexual orientation change, like that is the point. So if you wanted to put something in the party platform about having therapy available to people who are interested in healing wounds, that's fine. But reparative therapy, is in the dictionary. I mean, it has a definition. So if that's the language that you chose to put into the platform, that's what you're saying, whether that's what you intended to say or not.
Yeah, reparative therapy is mentioned in the last sentence. It's in lowercase letters, because that is one of the therapies that has been very beneficial to myself and many other people. It's not the only option that people choose. Some people, about half the guys that I come across, choose chastity or celibacy without reparative therapy. They may choose some other means of support. I did not say that I was born to be gay. I said that I didn't choose the orientation. By definition, I don't believe that.
So you think that God makes mistakes? Is that what you're saying? Because you're saying that if God created you and you were not born to be gay, I'm so confused.
Well, my biology shows that I wasn't born to be gay. My reproductive organs are designed for heterosexuality, so that.
Well, you seem to do pretty well for several years. I mean, you understood that that they could work in a relationship. You lived with a guy. You actually say on your own blog, you say that you were in 6 long-term relationships. So it seems like to me, if you're saying that we're not designed, I mean,
well, they didn't work because I wasn't designed for that. I tried to make it work, but and I'm not trying to judge anybody else or tell anybody else what to do.
Well, you are. When you say that, you are judging. Do you understand that? And that's why you have had a huge backlash, have you not? Like you told me you've had a huge backlash, correct? I mean, even from your family,
sure. Yeah.
and from Republicans. So,
yeah.
And you're right now. I would dare say that you're. I mean, in our exchange, in our conversation, you feel a lot of passion and animosity, and I'm not supporting what people are writing you, because it's horrible, some of the things that they're writing you, but I do understand the passion, because what you're doing is you're telling us, you say I don't judge, and you use all of this rhetoric, but quite frankly, you do judge. You're judging us.
How is that?
How are by telling us that we are not meant to be in a same-sex relationship, and I am meant to be. I'm telling you that is a judgment. Is it not?
Yeah, it's a judgment about
my life, and you use the words lifestyle and all of this stuff, but you know, the thing is, you pointed out, the interesting thing that you pointed out in you're describing your journey down gay, it was all sneaky, and and that's not your fault, because you were taught, like I was, that gay was a dirty thing, that gay was something that was very wrong. And now we went in two very different, in my opinion, I used my intelligence and my heart to guide me finally to the light. My light was that this is how I was created. And you can say all you want about it not being spiritual and this not being spiritual, but in the Narth, you quote Narth a whole lot, but the first thing they use is Christian values. It all goes back to religion.
And really, because part of what it boils down to is these laws aren't about you. They're about teenagers and limiting the ability of religious parents and conservative communities to teach adolescents that there is something wrong with them, that shame is taught, that shame is learned, and that is the reason these quote-unquote self-motivated teens feel that there is something that needs to be fixed. And so while you as an adult can sit with a licensed therapist and ask them to help you with anything, hey, if you want to be a unicorn, you and your therapist can sit there and work as hard and as long as you want to be a unicorn. What we're saying is that you can't tell your child that they should be a unicorn and send them to therapy to fix it. So we're not limiting the, it seems that there's this element of that we're taking away religious rights or this freedom of conscience, which basically boils down to values and morals, which is ultimately religious. Yes?
Well, I believe that telling a child that they're born to be gay is the same as saying that they're born to be a unicorn, because it's not something that they're biologically designed for, and it's not something that I believe would be healthy for them.
Well, then that's a judgment, Jeremy. I'm going to go back to you.
It is.
Yes, you're judging. You're judging.
Agree to disagree.
But that's
a judgment, not about people, but about the situation.
Well, it is. We are
I don't
people,
believe it's
Jeremy.
about homophobia. It's about.
We are people. So if you're saying it about a situation, we are people. Does that make sense?
And every one of those adolescents, when they become an adult, has the right to follow you down that yellow brick road and make those decisions. What we're saying is that their parents don't, and their communities don't have the right to teach them that there's something wrong and attempt to fix it through reparative therapy.
Well, a licensed therapist isn't going to be allowed to work with a minor against their will. That's already established protocol.
Well, right, but the minor's will, this self-motivated idea, is because they are told that there is something that needs to be worked on.
Okay, and let's go back to let's just say, okay, the ones that you're familiar with. You're talking about your experience. There are many parents who force their children into this therapy, and you know that's a fact. Look at what happened to you when you were 14 years old, when your mother screamed at you Bible verses all night long. These children are forced. I mean, I sent you the video today of that documentary where they're literally kidnapping them and taking them, and you said you were appalled by that. But I don't see that it's that much difference that when a parent forces a kid. And so what you wrote in this platform allows that too. It's not just your experience.
Anybody to be kidnapped or forced.
I didn't say kidnapped. I say forced into therapy, because those therapists have the right, if the parents take them and put them in therapy. I'm a parent. I know this. I have been able to put my children in therapy over other issues. That would be the case. That would be the case, Jeremy. That would be the case. So what you wrote was something that was your personal experience, but you put it into a platform, and it was a little bit, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not real pleased about this, are they?
Well, it wasn't just my personal experience. I circulated this with hundreds of other people that had similar experiences.
But I mean, but what Dell means is the Texas Republican Party is not super pleased with the attention
it was a little sneaky.
The head of the GOP has come out and said that he wished that it was not included. And when you have Republicans telling you as a Republican that you're too extreme for the party platform, and there are crazy things in all Republican Party platforms. The national one has absolutely insane elements, and you're being pointed to as sort of the craziest thing. I mean, is there not a way to realize that you are stepping into an area that medical professionals and individuals feel this is specifically about teenagers, there's nothing about adults. And so your reaction to two states' attempt to ensure that children aren't abused by religion and their parents and their communities makes you seem like a crazy person. Like, do you understand where the reaction is coming from?
Well, this was circulated to all the delegates back in November. I mean, they've had this. It was debated and voted on in several thousand precincts and in all 31 Senate districts.
Then why are they mad at you? Well, if they all agree to it, why are they upset?
It's a handful of people that aren't.
A handful?
Yeah, I mean, and people that weren't there as well. But I mean, the people that were delegates, I mean, it was voted on, and they did not challenge it at that time. You told me
that you were losing every friend and almost everybody in your life over this. Is that not true? Did you say that to me?
Not everybody in my life. I said I've gotten a lot of pushback from certain people. And
people you care about, people you respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the real issue boils down to there's no evidence that this works. So
actually, I mean, it's using all the same psychological therapies that everybody else uses. It's not a separate modality of therapy.
Well, but I mean, but if there's no scientific and empirical evidence to support that it is effective. What's the goal?
There's none, and even your own people who have gone through these programs. I mean, I could read one after another here, and we got to get to Mr. Leslie Jordan, so we can't dwell on this too much longer. But I could read one after another. I did so much research. I feel like I did as much research as I did for my play, The Trials and Tribulations of a Trailer Trash Housewife, on this, because I wanted to understand you, and I really wanted to understand where you were when But every single person who left, and there are hundreds of them, they have left. They've left because almost all of them left because of scandal, of having sex, massages, or whatever. The leaders or those who, and I'm just going to go back to what I said to you.
Yeah.
I do believe that this sort of rhetoric is killing people. I believe that blood is on your hands. And anybody who when kids are that impressionable, that young, and they're hearing that they are not worthy, that they were designed wrong, that their equipment is wrong, or whatever you're trying to say there.
That's the opposite of what I'm saying.
I know, but do you realize there are suicides that happen to gay youth because of this sort of rhetoric? Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think they happen because of, in most cases, because they don't have the support and the love that they need from their family, and that's not because of actually getting this therapy. It's in a lot of cases sometimes because they're not getting this therapy. It's not.
It's not the therapy. They're not getting. You said it right. You said it right the first time. They're not getting love and support from their families. They're being shamed.
Yeah, and then also
they're saying that they're not.
They're also not getting this therapy. It's not because of this therapy that's causing them to do that.
They wouldn't need the therapy if there was love. If there was unconditional love, and they would not need it, the shame would be gone.
It sort of boils down to that the root cause of all of this premise, I mean, Dr. Nicolosi and Narth and all of this, it's all built on the foundation that there is something that needs to be fixed in the first place, instead of just dealing with your inabilities to relate to male peers, or your insecurity, or the emotional wounds, or the shame that you were taught. It's if you make a conclusion and build the therapy from there, instead of dealing with the person and allowing the result to be whatever it is, this is what's going to continue to happen.
That's what the therapy is based on. It's based on the individual person. It's different for everybody.
Well, then it shouldn't be in a platform.
The individual wounds that they...
Okay, we got to wrap up, but I want to say something to you.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, your hero, Nicolosi, said homosexuality is always prompted by an inner sense of loneliness and emptiness. That is just so appalling to me. I just want to say that. But I also want to say this to you, Jeremy. I care for you very much. I like you. I like you as a person, and I actually love you as a person. So I want you to know that if this all falls apart, which I predict that it will, that I am going to always be here for you. Always. You can always call me, and I hope that someday that we can have dialogue again. And I've enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed getting to know you. And you went away in my life for a while, and I know why you did. But I just want you to know I'm always there for you, and I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I know this hasn't been easy.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill, and I love you as well. And I hope we can talk some more soon.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Undoubtedly, this is an issue that is going to continue to be relevant, so we will look for an opportunity to have you back, and we'll continue this conversation with other people.
And you'll be welcome back anytime. So thank you so much, my friend.
Okay.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the continuing our conversation on the impact of reparative therapy and LGBT issues. We're going to take an extremely fast break with this song, It Gets Better, which seems entirely appropriate, from Blake McIver. While we bring in Mr. Leslie Jordan, we'll be right back.
We'll be back with Leslie.
Child without a friend, I see a soul who thinks that it's the end. A broken will's the hardest thing to mend, but try to understand. I know you're hurting, I can see your pain, but you've got a future where there's no more shame. You're a miracle in spite of what they say. And you'll see a bright new day, 'cause it gets better. It gets better. It gets better.
We're back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Mr. Leslie Jordan.
Leslie Jordan's in the house.
Hey.
Leslie. And I will dare say that reparative therapy will not work on Leslie. We saw that it didn't in Sorted Lives.
Yeah, what y'all should know is while we were doing that interview, Leslie was already here, and he came in writing notes on a little piece of paper and waving them in the air, and he wrote on it, he said, "What I've learned in 30 years is you need to let the interviewee speak." Said, well.
No, that really, I've done this for over 30 years, and you get, this didn't happen just then, but you do get these people that interview you, and they talk the entire time, and you wonder, why am I here? You know, why am I here? But, you know,
He got some airtime.
And my belief is, in the big scheme of things, it's not going to happen, I don't think, his platform, and you can't have dialogue.
It's impossible.
It really
They've
is.
made up their mind, and their foundation crumbles.
But then again, so have we, in that we know what we know, and they know what they know. Now, who's right, who's wrong? It's irrelevant.
Well, we have a stack of people here who went through it, who left because of one reason or another, and it's one after. In Exodus, we didn't talk. They fell apart.
I'm talking about the big scheme of things in any kind of argument. You know, when I was a kid, I don't remember the kind of cultural divide we have now. I do remember one of the biggest sources of my shame is, besides all the gay stuff, is that I did not register to vote till I was 42 years of age.
Wow.
Who voted? Nobody voted. You know, you can't.
I did.
Well, you can't vote on a Quaalude. You know? Can't vote. Who could even get up? Seriously, I was that generation, and then 42, I got sober, and that's my platform now. Is one of my many is that kids have to vote. Let's pay attention. I didn't know a Republican from a Democrat. I didn't know which was the donkey, which was the elephant. I was 42 years old, and so I think. You know, I don't remember, though, that kind of cultural divide that we have now, where you know, I do remember when I first got sober at 42. I'm now 59, but I do remember that every time the Republicans would come up with an idea, I'd think to myself, "Oh, I don't think that's a very good idea." but not to the impassion where I literally thought, "I'm going to explode here. What on earth are they thinking?" You know,
our good friend Sarah Hunley once said to me, she said, "Dale, when I find out someone's a Republican, I don't think I like them anymore. No, it's very difficult for me to like them anymore." That's Juanita. and
it is such a cultural divide now. My gosh, I mean, any idea they
But
have.
look what's happening. They're losing. You
They're
said it the best.
losing,
You said it
and
best.
we are so ahead. Listen, I went to, I was appearing, I didn't think this would happen. I got to host in Lexington, Kentucky, this huge event in which the main speaker was a guy named Jack Conway, who is like a Kennedy. He's going to be the next governor of Kentucky, if not our president 20 years from now. He's the only other person I've ever heard give a 30-minute speech with no white cards, and it's so impassioned, was Nancy Pelosi one time. This guy gave a speech about, the basis was, I love my wife. I love her. My marriage is so, important and sacred to me, but it is not any more important than anyone else in this room. And of course, the crowd just went crazy. Mm-hmm. But here was the deal. I then got up and tried to make a joke. I said, the only other politician I've ever had a huge crush on was Gavin Newsom years ago. And I leaned into his wife on the dais and I said, I am desperately in love with your husband. What are we going to do? And she said, oh, honey, you can have him. So I said, I got to find Mrs. Conway to tell her I'm desperately in love with her husband. But anyway, in 1977, I lived in Lexington, Kentucky, on East Maxwell Street, which was kind of like the gay ghetto. And at night, at daytime, I was a journalism student, and I was also a exercise rider for racehorses. I had this life. And then at night, the minute the sun went down, I couldn't even make it to the gay bar without a drink because I couldn't walk in a gay bar sober. There was still that much kind of shame. And I would stop at High on Roses, which is the Mexican place, have a couple of drinks. And then we didn't even go in the front door. It's now called in Lexington, it's called the Bar. And next to it, it's the Lexington Theater, where we've done so many events for Sordid Lives and stuff.
Right.
But we went in the back Just what we did in gay bars. Gay bars didn't. You couldn't be seen.
But you said the word shame, which he kept saying. Where did that come from?
Well, it came from our upbringing, and it came from exactly where you said it came from. You know, the shame came from in a church pew. What can I say?
There you
Church
go.
pew. The shame came on the playground. The shame, like you say in one of your plays, the first word that really summed it up for you was sissy. For me, it was pussy. He's a pussy. That's what they would say. And I'd think, oh, that's me. But I kind of wish I had one. No. I'm teasing. But anyway, real quickly.
I thought that's what you talked out of.
Listen, what happened in Lexington last weekend was I thought, my God, full circle, Sorted Lives tonight. Today's tomorrow, Thursday. Southern Baptist Sissies is premiering at the Kentucky Theater.
Mm-hmm.
They came up and handed me a little poster of it and said, you can announce this. I began to announce it and broke into sobbing at the full circle of me at this political rally with the next governor of Kentucky and gay marriage. Listen, had you asked me in 1977, sneaking in that back door, to even think of gay men being able to walk down the street holding hands was...
And so the shame disappears because, I mean, not that your upbringing changed, but your intelligence took over and you celebrated proudly
But
standing
this young
there.
man, I think, just has a spiritual problem. His problem is spiritual. You
Well-
know, it's rectifying this with this, and he cannot seem to do that, and I think it's spiritual. There's something empty, missing spiritually.
Well, and
Whether
also-
he's gay, straight, he could have been the straightest man on this planet and shamed because he was fat. Who knows?
Well, he said he had the
He had
female breast.
breasts.
Well, yeah.
Well, and he talked about that, and this Nicolosi guy, you know, whose son he studied with, all of his points of starting this reparative therapy are all like reinforcing 1950s archaic stereotypes of masculine behavior. It literally says keep them away from things that homosexuals like opera and the symphony, and don't hang out with girls except in a romantic way, and make them play sports. That's literally in the therapy.
But you
from the
should
guy.
hear him speak, this Nicolosi. I mean, if we want to go to the stereotype, if my gaydar were on, I would go, hey, he's gay.
Lil Lispy.
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was the boy that was here or the other
the
one?
one that his mentor.
The question I want to ask is, it's irrelevant whether you act on it. Do they consider themselves still homosexual?
Well,
How they define it is that they have reduced same-sex attraction by healing wounds and releasing shame. Now, the only question I have to that is, what does that mean? What does it reduce? Like you only get a half chub when you see a hot guy, or you're only attracted to every other man?
But see, what I always say is it has nothing to do. I could go my whole life and never have sex. It has nothing to do with sex.
Well, exactly.
I could go my whole life and never have sex. It doesn't change a thing.
And
It says I am a homo. I hate even the word homosexual because it has sex in it. I'm queer.
but look, I mean, and you know, he says the lifestyle. But look at our friends Patrick and Kevin and Tommy and Rich raising children and so many people. I mean, you judge this lifestyle or whatever. That may be his lifestyle, but it's not everybody's lifestyle.
Exactly.
Okay, we have to get going here in a second, but I want to talk about you. What are you doing right now? What's up next for Mr. Leslie Jordan? Where can people find you?
Well, I'm opening a brand new one-man show called it's called Say Cheese: My Love Affair with the Camera.
Of
there's
course.
there's a guy named Jim Cox who had pictures of me for the last 20 years, and every one of them is with a different straight boy. And I've always said this is my final character defect. This is the only thing that keeps me from true serenity, is that I am almost 60 years old. I have never had a lasting relationship with a gay man. I've had relationships that lasted 10 years with straight men. There was no sex. You both know Brannon. All those years, desperately in love. La, 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 la. What is that about? And so I have this show where I've really, really delved into it. And I say in part of it, I say, I think my friend Dale's take on it is that perhaps I have residual shame from childhood and I don't feel as if I deserve a decent partner. At least in one of his plays he said that. And I go, but that ain't it. It ain't it. I would be the first to admit it. What I think is this: I have had a relationship. It's lasted 30 years. through sickness and health. It's till death do us part, and it's my love affair with the camera.
Well,
And so I have all
love it.
these pictures of me over the years, and we did a read through of it at Copa last night in Palm Springs because my marketing firm, and so I'll do that.
And where can they find everywhere you are? Is it Leslie?
Well, not my website because we forget to. The best way to reach me is the official page of Leslie Jordan
on Facebook
And
and
you
on
should
Twitter.
like that because he talks about shit he shouldn't talk about. I'm always saying,
do.
are you sure you want to put that up?
My manager calls every day Billy Miller and is just horrified. But I'm an open book. I've always been an open book, and every
So about
day.
45,000 people.
42, maybe 3. But the thing is, I'll post something really revealing, and then they'll be within a couple. I mean, also, I rejected social media for so long. It just scared me. People my age, it scared me. Here's Miss Ann Walker just walked in to show us some of the pictures. Aren't those gorgeous? They're pictures.
I love that picture of you. Look how you look. That is such a beautiful picture of you.
That was 10 years ago, and that was a reject.
And you're like, this is Ann Walker,
Ann
y'all.
Walker, everybody.
It's our Vanna White.
We're looking at pictures for my new one-man show. These were the rejects. There's Riley. He's one of the newer ones, but Riley presents healing because he is straight, and I've never attempted anything untoward with young Riley. Right.
Right there.
Oh, y'all can see?
Yeah, there's
How they see?
If you watch it on the internet, you can see it.
There's cameras everywhere.
Oh,
You're
I
on
didn't fix
camera.
up. I had no idea. That's
I'm not
Brannon.
presentable.
That's
I
Brannon.
love that picture of you.
It's best if you stand behind Emerson, honey.
This is when Kevin Williamson
Vanna.
Kevin Williamson wrote a pilot called where he stole an idea from Miss. Well,
Oh, stop.
anyway, no.
Okay, stop.
Anyway, he did not steal anything. I'm teasing, but we did a beautiful. And Brannon got drunk and called the head of the WB network Brown Sugar. Kevin had to say, "You've got to do something about Brannon."
Current.
No, yeah, that's Riley. That's the current. He's.
From all the years I've known you, though, you have never been with a gay man. You've
Ever.
only ever had these young, gorgeous pony boys.
All right, we have to wrap up here, Leslie. Leslie, we want you back, and next time we'll have an hour with you because the fans love you and we love you, and thank you.
Maybe when Say Cheese makes it here.
Yes,
LA.
absolutely.
It'll probably be Christmas. I usually do the
We'll give away
The gay
some
and lesbian
tickets.
the Renberg.
the Renberg,
Yeah.
where we all began.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The Renberg Theater, where we all started, from Margaret Cho to Megan
Everybody.
Mullally to Kathy Griffin to everyone you can think of, and I do a Christmas show there usually. So
Well, you are loved by me. You're loved by the masses, and we thank you so much for being on our show, and we thank you for all you do for our community. We really do.
thanks.
If you want to find Leslie, you can find him on Facebook at the official page of Leslie Jordan, on Twitter at the Leslie Jordan. And as he mentioned, Southern Baptist Sissies is screening tomorrow night in Lexington, Kentucky at the Kentucky Theater, presented by the Bluegrass United Church of Christ, hosted by Miss Helena Handbasket. So that should certainly be an entertaining time. If you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook at the Dell and Emerson Show, and Dell's fan page is always an entertaining place to go. Also, if you're enjoying the show and you work with a business that thinks that reaching our listeners would be interesting, you can be an advertiser or a sponsor. Write us at dellandemerson@gmail.com.
And you will see Emerson on the People's Couch every single week, and I'll be at the Rose Room in Dallas on Friday night.
Thanks for joining us. We had a great
Thank
show.
you, Jeremy Schwab. Thank
Next
you, Leslie
week-
Jordan. We
ne-
appreciate y'all.
Next week, our special guest will be Willem Bell Eyes, so continuing our parade through the fabulous of the LGBT
He'll
community.
be the gay part of the show.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Up next, on air with
Now
Tony
that you
Sweet.
found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
She's got tickets to her